Hello, welcome everybody. I hope you enjoyed the presentation so far. This is Masoud. I'm software engineer at Snap and I'm here to talk about Iran. Right now I'm at Tehran, the capital of Iran, and today we are going to talk about tech innovations in Iran. First of all, we need to define the meaning of innovations. Innovation is the implementation and development of a process, software, product, or anything to gain efficiency and have competitive advantages. But in Iran, we need to change this meaning. Why is that so? Because while we have some common areas, we have plenty of differences. So speaking of these differences, I would like to mention some of these to you. First of all, we deal with lots of censorship, and besides that, sanctions from outside the world. These two are the two most major differences between Iran and rest of the world. The next items would be work routines, contracts, and connections between industry and university. As I mentioned about the common areas, some areas are same between Iran and rest of the world. For example, the tech stack that we use are same. The companies and the departments are same, and also the syllables and fields that we use in our universities are same to the rest of the world. So now we can define the meaning of innovation for Iran specifically. Innovation in Iran means recreating and changing the available solutions and startups in order to handle restrictions. Now we will walk through some examples to see what do we mean by these differences and these alternatives. We will give example in various fields and companies. The first one would be Uber. As you know, Uber is a popular company that is active in giving services in ride hailing. Uber has now more than 90 million users, 4 million drivers, and they reach 16 million rides per day. As an alternative, Snap in Iran is working on ride-hailing too. Snap has more than 40 million users and has more than 2 million drivers. Snap has reached more than 2 million rides a day. As Uber that is active in many other areas, Snap is active in other fields too. Uber activities is like Uber Freight, Uber Eats, and in Iran, Snap is working in food deliveries as Snap Food, providing online solutions for doctors as Snap Doctor, and also shopping solutions via Snap Market. Our next example would be Google Play. Google Play, as the most famous marketplace for Android users, has restricted many functionalities of its in Iran. For example, updating and installing apps like Instagram is restricted in Iran. So to handle these restrictions, Bazaar has stepped up to handle these restrictions. Bazaar has now more than 47 million active installs, and somehow you can find Bazaar in every Iranian Android app. The next field that we are going to talk about is video on demands. Video on demands are one of the most rapid gaining interest right now, and as rest of the world, Iran is active in this field too. Filimo is as one of the alternatives in Iran is growing day and day, and it has reached more than 2 million users right now. I would tell you the next example with asking a question. What is the first place that that comes to your mind when you are considering buying a product? That would be Amazon. In Iran, that would be Digicala. Digicala is providing wide ranges of products and giving answers to requirements of online shopping. Digicala is now delivering 40,000 deliveries per day, as compared to its alternative in the rest of the world, Amazon, that is giving 1.6 deliveries per day. So we are talking about these alternatives, but we have one problem in all of them. Every one of them, when dealing with high load and being scalable, they face issues with infrastructure. We are blocked from giving services from modern solutions of infrastructure. Google Cloud, AWS, DigitalOcean are all restricted in Iran. So how do we manage to maintain our applications? So let's reference to our title one more. We've got to create them. All of the high-tech companies in Iran have their own cloud team. They provide their own infrastructure. Snap has this functionality with SnapCloud. DigiCala uses DigiCloud, and Bazaar uses Sutun, its dedicated online infrastructure solution. As other alternatives I mentioned, Iran has cloud providers too. Arban Cloud and ZAS are two most famous cloud providers in Iran. They provide online cloud solutions to people and startups and companies, and they are the first option for the companies and startups. So while I gave you some examples, now it's time to talk about the differences more and describe them and see how they affect us on our daily routine. The first difference, and one of the biggest one, was censorship. Many services and websites are blocked in Iran by government. Most famous ones are YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. This would affect many people in this industry. This would affect advertising, social networking, and instruction. Besides censorship, the next one would be sanctions. Many services are unable to service in Iran because of sanctions. The most famous one is Google and all of its services. Google Web Service, Google Ads, Google Analytics, Google Maps are restricted to be used in Iran. As I mentioned, Google Web Services are restricted, so all of the websites and services that are hosted on Google Web Service are also unavailable in Iran. After Google, AWS and Docker are also unavailable to service in Iran. After that, GitLab and GitHub has also minimum functionality in Iran. But all of these can be bypassed by using VPNs. Most developers in Iran use VPNs to bypass these restrictions and use those services. But some services can't be bypassed. And the most famous one is sanctions on banking system. Iranian can't use credit card systems, and they cannot transfer money to outside. So freelancers cannot get paid by international employees, and students cannot enroll in online coursing systems. If we want to talk about sanctions, this would continue all day and will fill all the slide. So let's move on to our next object. First, I would ask you a question. How many of you knows where is Iran located? Iran is located in Asia, and the next question would be, how many of you know what is the population of Iran? 85 million. If we sum up the population of Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Netherlands, we will reach 40 million. So what does this number tell you? That Iran is wealthy on HR. Lots of talented and skilled workers are active in this environment, and many students are sticking to pursue their college and graduation in computer science. Computer science, as one of the fields that is more tolerable than other fields to sanctions, is gaining interest between students, and it's their first option for graduation. While we are on the subject of human resources, one of the concepts that every company and people are always engaged in, that is immigration. Many companies lose their workers because of immigration. Many students seek to pursue their dreams outside of the borders. So they like to have higher degrees outside of the country. While many senior employees are migrating, the person who remains are challenged, and they needed to fill their co-workers' responsibility, and they have to grow more and more faster. Now, what parts of this company are active in tech community? If you want to categorize them, they will be in three categories. First, government and governmental companies. The second one would be private companies and startups, and the last one would be military companies. If you want to talk about our next difference while having some talks about these categories, I would choose work routines. Work routines is different between person to person, place to place, and company to company. But if you want to talk in a common way, most governmental companies have fixed working hours, and their personnel have permanent contracts. While on the private companies, people often work more late, they work more than usual, and the pressure is more on the staff. And now we reach industry and university. Two things come up to my mind about this subject. First, thesis, and then internship. Internship is one of the last courses that every bachelor degree student should pass in their bachelor program. So, but it isn't taken seriously. But internship is a most serious part that people need to enter the tech community. And because of this problem, people have problems entering the tech community in Iran at the first times. And about thesis, they are mostly proposed theoretically, and they are used for publications. And because of lack of good links between industry and universities, these subjects cannot be better, and they remain as they are. One thing that we can't forget about is open source culture. Open source culture is really focused in Iran because this is one of the parts that cannot be restricted by others, and Iranians can be confident about using them. They like to use them and contribute to them. And it's the first option for the companies to use this technology. People tend to contribute to enrich their resumes and have better chance for immigration. Many projects are contributed by Iranians, and one of the most famous ones is OpenStreetMap. As Google Maps is restricted to use in Iran in many of its features, Iranian startups active on maps provided many contributions to OpenStreetMap project. I've talked this far about limitation and restriction, and with these limitations we also get surprised again. I would give you two special cases today, and both start as follows. Suppose that you wake up, you turn on your system, and then you see lots of messages from your co-workers and lots of tweets in social medias. What happened? In July 2019, GitHub suddenly closed all of Iranian private projects and repositories on GitHub. This brought so much problems for Iranian, and all of the commits, branches, merge requests, and tags were gone. The whole project was gone for them, and many people that didn't have backup for their project lost their projects. The people who had backup migrated to other Git providers. As a result, Iranian created a public project and indicating to GitHub that we are active in open source community, and they listed their open source projects. After a few months, GitHub dropped all the restrictions and everything got back to normal. And the second situation that I want to talk to you about starts like the same. You wake up, you turn on your system, and this time you see nothing. The internet was shut down in Iran because of political reasons. Government shut down internet for Iranians to not connect to each other. We lost connectivity to each other and to the rest of the world. This brought lots of problems in our work routine. Many things changed. In those days, we couldn't search for our problems, and we couldn't use external services. Many applications faced error. In the first days of our work, we mostly hold our meetings. But after a few days that we found out this gonna continue, we started working, and something was different during these days. If we faced a problem and we faced an error, we couldn't search for that error. We should find another person. So instead of searching for errors, we needed to search for people who have faced that error before to get the answers from them by person. This situation continued for 163 hours, and this was one of the weirdest situations ever. So what we are talking to is that limitation makes us new challenges, and these challenges always grow us more. It makes us grow more and grow faster. With limitation and restrictions, solving problems is harder and longer, but at the end people have deeper views. And with deeper views, they are ready for more challenges. I'm not saying that we like restrictions. Restrictions are bad and they have lots of impacts. negative impacts. But beside that, it has positive impacts mostly on human resources and workers. As a person who grew in this environment and worked in this environment, I always conditioned myself to one thing, and that is I should always do my best and try to solve these problems. And at the end, I have the smile out of solving these problems, and I have grown more. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope you have enjoyed this presentation.